Hey gorgeous! Currently 6.5 months from the wedding. Not a whole lot to report on. I have tried to contact our venue coordinator about 3 times in the last couple weeks, and he hasn't gotten back to us yet. So I'm a little nervous. Mainly because at this point we're supposed to be starting to we should have had our tasting done according to online things. I guess you don't have to follow the timeline. It said, oh, do a tasting 8 months before, which we haven't gotten to yet. And we also need to start working on invites, so start doing invites 6 months beforehand. And obviously we don't send them out yet, but we want to try and get stuff together to give people their food options, but we don't have food options yet, so we can't really do that. We also need help with our timeline because we have questions about what to do for our timeline. I'll get more into that in a second. So yeah, our big issue is just trying to get him to talk to us. I've emailed twice. Jake emailed trying to follow up, asking, oh, have you gotten to Stacy's questions yet? And he hasn't. And I'm sure he's got more pressing weddings going on right now, or maybe they finally have a new coordinator because we had a different coordinator originally when we booked the venue, and then she quit. And now this guy's been working. I don't know if he's actually a coordinator or if he was just filling in, and maybe there's a new person that's going to take over. We will wait and see, but we have questions for him. We sort of need them answered soon. So Jake said he'd call on Tuesday if he doesn't get any responses. I guess as a little video diary aside, I finished Kadocha, which was pretty good. It didn't end the way I wanted it to, unfortunately. I looked it up, and I read the manga as a kid, which is why I really wanted to watch this anime. When I went to Japan the first time with my friend Jamie, we actually saw a snippet of the anime. I didn't know it was an anime. We saw a snippet on TV just flipping through the channels, and I was so excited. And I found it had like 100-something episodes, but they don't have them all in the US. And then I looked up more about it because I'm curious because I've read the manga, so I assumed I know everything. And apparently the anime ended about a year before the manga ended, maybe a little less than that. But the point being is my favorite arcs are at the end, and they don't cover them in the anime at all. I looked up the last episodes, and they just aren't going to be there. So even if they do, they're talking about rolling out all the episodes. They dubbed some of them, but not all of them. And then they're thinking of re-releasing with the subtitles that they never released in the US. And I was like, oh, I want to buy it. But it's such a bummer that I won't get those favorite episodes. It's one of those things where I asked my brother once what he would do with $1 million. And he said, oh, I'd bring back another season of Futurama. Which I think is pretty funny. That's not something I would have thought to do. Now he's getting his wish, apparently. I heard they're going to redo Futurama, and I don't know how that's going to be because I liked how it ended. We'll see how that goes. But it's like, oh, if I had just buckets of money, I would love to have Kadocha run longer and end the way it's supposed to end. But it is what it is. I'm not just going to come into buckets of money. It wouldn't happen. And also, I don't know how that translates. It was a late 90s anime. I don't know how that would look in today's style. It's definitely it's what I grew up with, so I'm used to it, but a lot of people nowadays would not like that at all. I guess maybe to make this a little more wedding related, it's sort of like a wedding where you get to the end and it's a little different than what you planned at the beginning. I know I always had different plans for what my wedding would look like, but then I saw the prices and I was like, nope. I'm gonna do the best with what I got, but for the most part, I just want people to be fed and happy. Oh, that's back to my other thing about timeline I was going to talk about. So this is more of a word of advice for people. I'll get into all the details. Hopefully this doesn't turn into a rant. It might. But so to backtrack, my advice is to say, if you have an idea and you aren't sure on it, make sure if you ask for advice that you're open to advice and you're not just seeking validation. Because I went to a popular online forum, which you guys might be able to guess, asking a question about wedding timelines, and I got destroyed, even though I thought I was being pretty open about it, and it was just more of a question about what is the etiquette. A lot of people were very mad about it. The question was, so like I said, we don't have a timeline yet because we haven't been able to talk to the venue. And my idea for, I kind of have a whole day planned out. I don't know if it's feasible yet, because I still have questions. But I kind of wanted to give the coordinator this timeline and ask if it seemed feasible. So I'm thinking 3:30 we do the ceremony, and I'm writing the ceremony. Our friend is officiating, so I'm going to write the ceremony, and I assume with processional and stuff, it will probably be half an hour. It probably won't take too long. We do want to do like a mixing, like maybe a cocktail mixing ceremony instead of like as our unity ceremony. And we'll see if that's allowed. I don't know if the alcohol will be an issue. We signed something with the venue where we can only use the food they provide, so I don't know if we could owe them extra. And then also, so our ceremony space is different than the reception space. So that also is something that might be an issue. I don't know if we're allowed to bring outside food and drink to the ceremony space. It's only 10 minutes from the reception space, but I'm not sure if we would have to buy something from the reception area and then bring it to the ceremony. I don't know if we just can only have food at the reception or food and drinks at the reception area. I'm not sure, because our ceremony's at a golf course and it's just its own separate thing. We haven't talked to anyone at the golf course because apparently our venue handles it, but like we haven't even gotten a chance to visit it yet. We saw it in pictures because we went to look at it in winter. It wasn't winter. I guess we booked it in like August, September, but we weren't sure if we could go see it. We were trying to set up an appointment, and then the thing with our coordinator quitting happened and we couldn't get hold of anybody, so it was winter by the time we wanted to look at it, and there was it wouldn't have given us the right impressions since we're having a fall wedding, not a winter wedding, unless I live in Minnesota, so who knows. Anyway, back to the timeline. So we don't know about the food and stuff, which is an issue. That's why this timeline issue came up. Ceremony and then receiving line / go back to the venue to like greet people at their tables before dinner. And sometime in there we'd have pictures with the extended family. I'm not sure if we do that at the ceremony space or the reception space. We still haven't decided because we don't know how it's going to go. Before the ceremony, we're having a first look and everything, so at least we'll have all of like our like couple pictures and all our wedding party pictures. I'm going to ask our immediate families to come early to get some family pictures. It's more extended families that we would do between the ceremony and the dinner. But since we're doing the ceremony, be done probably 3:34, and in my question on this forum was if I could skip a cocktail hour, because in my head, maybe some of you guys are thinking like, what? Why would you do that? In my head, it makes sense because I've been to the majority of the weddings I've been to have had a Catholic gap, so there hasn't really been a cocktail hour. It's been the ceremony earlier. Everyone leaves. I called my mom to talk about this, and she told me, specifically this year, she went to my cousin's wedding, and they have a Catholic gap, and she went to my brother's hotel room, and they pre-gamed the reception. Like, they hung out in his room together, and then they went to the reception, they had dinner, and then dancing. So they didn't have a cocktail hour, and I've been to a lot of weddings where there wasn't a cocktail hour because of the Catholic gap. But we're not having a church wedding, so there won't be a Catholic gap. It's more just an imposed gap. Because I figure people could, between the receiving line and people chatting and doing the Minnesota goodbye thing where you're like, oh, I'll see you at this place, or oh, I'll see you later, but you hang out and talk for another half an hour before you actually go. I figured between all of that, we'd get people to the reception space at like 5:30, or well, 4:35, whatever, and they can maybe stop at their hotel in the middle. The hotel is right next to the reception space. It's literally in the same parking lot. So people could easily go to their hotel rooms if they have a hotel, or they could hang out with someone who does have a hotel room. Or they could hang out in the reception space. But my idea was to have food start at 5 or 5:30. So there is still, from the start of the ceremony, it's about 2.5 hours. But from the end of the ceremony, an additional like either receiving line or meeting people at tables where you go around, that's probably an extra half hour, 45 minutes. We have 240 people coming. It's going to take a while. So there'd really only be about an hour. Also, driving the 15 minutes to the reception space from the ceremony space. It's 10-15 minutes. So I figured it'd be a pretty short gap, and we don't need a cocktail hour. But everybody was basically calling me a monster. Just, how dare you not offer your guests alcohol in a cheese plate? How do you expect them to tolerate their time at this wedding that you're planning without either of those things? And to be fair, I didn't really specify. There's pop included with the venue. There is water included. I don't know, so this is another thing, I don't know if we're doing an open bar yet. We got an all-inclusive venue, and it comes with, we can either get 2 kegs of beer, we can get 1 keg of beer and 12 bottles of wine, or we can get 24 bottles of wine. And that comes with it. We don't have to pay extra for that. But if we want anything else, it costs extra, and we don't know how much extra. That's a question we still have for the venue. So we probably won't have an open bar. We'll probably have wine and beer, and we'll try to provide extra because I feel like that's not gonna give everybody enough to drink. But since we only have a limited amount, I was hoping to only start opening the bar when dinner starts, or like a little before dinner. So what's the point of a cocktail hour if we're going to eat so soon? But everybody else said it was a bad idea. When I called my mom to talk about it, she said, oh, maybe just push. So when I talked to my mom about it, my plan was 5:30, and she said maybe push it up to 5, and that could help. Because in my mind, people have lunch at noon, and then they have dinner at 5 or 6, and some people have lunch, or not have lunch, and some people have dinner even later than that, so it seemed reasonable. And I just don't know how much, an appetizer option would be. We don't know that price point. We don't know if we're allowed to have food at the ceremony space, or if everybody would have to leave the ceremony space to go to the reception space and be there, like, I don't know how long they'd be there before us, which is, I guess, the point of the cocktail hour, is if the wedding party isn't there, then the people have something to drink and eat. So it's still up in the air, still not sure, but my main point is that if you're seeking validation for your idea, it might not go the way you want it, and you might just end up getting very angry. This happened a few days ago, and I was just, it was kind of funny how defensive I was about it. The more people said, that's a bad idea, you shouldn't do that, have a cocktail hour, the more I was like, I don't want a cocktail hour, you can't tell me what to do, you're a stranger on the internet, you don't know me. Of course, I didn't say that, because in my mind I know that's unreasonable, and it's easy for them to say because they're not the one footing the bill for it. And maybe they are for their wedding, maybe their parents are paying, maybe they've got other stuff going on, and in the end of the day, they're an internet stranger, and they can tell me whatever they want. I think what got me was they were so mean about it when I was just asking a question. I wasn't just like, oh, screw my guests, I don't care how they feel. It was just, I'm trying to be cost effective, and the time is very small, do I need this? Just a question. Like I said, I was hoping for validation I was hoping someone would say, no, you don't need a cocktail hour, save your money. I did really want that. No one gave me that, and so I was upset about it. But then I talked to I'm in a wedding Discord, and they were a lot nicer about it. They still agreed that I should probably have a cocktail hour, but it depends on your circles. That's not where I live, it's a thing. I'm not saying no one has ever done a cocktail hour at a wedding I've been to. It's a thing. I remember one of my friends got married, and they were very upset because I wasn't in the bridal party, but my partner was, and so they let us do the party, like we went on the party bus from the ceremony to the reception. But the bus took a little bit longer, we had to stop somewhere, and by the time we got to the reception, all of the appetizers were gone. The bride and groom were so sad because they really wanted to have the pretzels and beer cheese that they'd gotten, but there was literally nothing left. They didn't get any of the food. And so I think about that and I feel really bad for them, but at least I guess their guests were happy. But then we also ate pretty soon after that. To be fair, the guests were there longer. In my mind, we're not going to be doing too many extended family pictures. And part of an idea I had, and this is something we have to talk to our photographer about, we do have 2 photographers, and we're not doing favors. So one thing I was thinking, because I've heard horror stories, which, is valid if people didn't plan for this, but I've heard horror stories of people getting their photographer commandeered by, like, an aunt or, like, a cousin or someone just being like, hey, take a picture of my family. And I thought, if we have a second shooter and we have all of our couple and, like, wedding party and family shots, why can't we just have the second photographer take family photos of people, and then they could... The way our photographer does it, they put all the pictures on a website, and then you And then we get to download them, I believe. But if other people would want them, they could, I think, buy them. I'm actually not exactly sure how that works, but they all show up on the website. So if they told us after the wedding, we can just send people the link and they can just like input their email and they can see our wedding pictures. So if people wanted to take family photos, they could do that, and maybe that could be our favor, but we still need to ask about that. A lot of questions we need to ask that we just haven't gotten around to yet. Along with the not asking questions just a seek validation thing, also, if you have a question, and this might be obvious, and some people might not want to do this, which is also very fair, but ask someone who knows your crowd. Like how I said I called my mom. She knows weddings in this area more than other people might. I don't know if you can hear that. Jake decided to take a shower and it's right across the hallway from me. But yeah, if you have concerns, maybe bring it up to someone who's closer to you, whose opinion you value more. Because, like I said, strangers can say anything. They're not invested in this like you are. They have their own things that they want done or things that they care more about than you do. And I suppose, I'm not saying you can't ask questions online. I know plenty of people ask, I picked out this, I have 3 top dresses. Which ones do you think look the nicest? But sometimes I look at those and I wonder if it's really the best idea to ask those questions, because I think, like me, they're seeking validation. Every so often I'll see one where we'll have 3 dresses and someone will say, which one do you think I picked? And everyone will heavily favor one dress, and I'll see in the comments that they picked a different dress. And I feel like that's just asking for dress regret. And I just don't want you to go seeking validation and then people tell you that you're wrong and then you freak out about it. It's just not fun. Like I panic now because I think I have this extra expense. What am I going to do? But at the end of the day, I do want my guests to be happy and to have a good time. And if that means having a cocktail hour, then we'll save up the money to have a cocktail hour. If we realize that if it's going to be $4,000 or something, if it's going to be a crazy amount to have a cocktail hour and we realize that's just not worth the cost to us, then we just don't do it. It's really a matter of, we do want the guests to be happy and to have a good time. But at the end of the day, so like I said, we haven't had our tasting, but this is a venue that I've been to before. Not for a wedding, but it is a place that caters large events. It's part of why I wanted this place. And so they're used to serving a huge amount of people their dinners all at the same time. So I thought, this is perfect. We have a large amount of people and they will all get their food in, a semi-timely manner, as fast as you can give that amount of people their food. And I've had the food there and it's pretty good. I've only had 1 or 2 dishes. I went in high school, so I got the chicken tenders. I didn't really get the fancier meals that we're going to get this time around probably. But I kind of know the food is good, so that's a good start. We know where, like we toured the place, we know where we eat and where we dance are separate spaces, so that might be a little weird. But the place where we're dancing is really nice. So there's definitely space for dancing, there's space for people to mingle, and I think people will have fun. And at the end of the day, we're doing this to get married. So like I said, I do want the guests to have a good experience. I'm just trying not to sweat the smaller stuff because I know that can drive you crazy. And I already stress about stuff way too much, which is why I want an all-inclusive venue, and I'm still over here stressing too much about stuff. Which is why I asked Jake, can you handle the rehearsal dinner? We want to do a honeymoon in Japan, but it's still currently closed because of the world situation, so we can't currently plan that. It's gonna maybe take a year or 2. And I asked Jake just today, I said, do you want to do a mini moon? Where would we go? What should we do? And I'm sort of trying to get him to do some of those things. And obviously I'll help him out. And he's helped me out with stuff. When I'm freaking out, he calms me down, which is great because I'm very a type A planner and he's a very we'll see what happens kind of person. But even now, when we're 6 months out, it's a lot different than when we were a year out. When we were a year out, he's like, But now that it's 6 months, he's the one that's like, I'm gonna call the venue coordinator. We need to figure this out. Or, oh, I need to go and get my suit fitted. And he's bringing this stuff up, which is great. I'm glad that he is being a part of this, and I also know it's partially on me because I go after everything right away, and I want things done right this instant. So it's also my bad that he isn't doing some stuff, but he's been a great support through all of this, as he should be. That's what we're preparing for, is marriage. So anyway, that was my mini rant and my mini advice. Just, advice is great. Asking for opinions is good. Sometimes. That's what it boils down to. And I think that's it. That's all the wedding stuff we have going on right now. Hopefully I have an update on a tasting sometime soon. But until then, bye!